Hello my friends and welcome to Bob Anime Games the Disney Zone. We're well into the month of October at this point, so following this little Halloween theme I've got going, what should we tackle next? Oh, I know, how about some Precure?
Yeah, I know it's a little weird, but I also have to start setting up for next month when I review Fresh Precure, and possibly the first All-Stars film. They're both going to be a couple of my bigger reviews, so I want to start building towards them. Besides, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of kids dressed up as Precure later this month, alongside maybe some adults who use Halloween as an excuse to cosplay for the day.
最近、遊園地などで催されるハロウィンパーティーが仮装していいのをいいことに、彼らによるただの漫画アニメのコスプレイベントと化しているのです。
Anyway, for today, let's talk about the character archetype that is the Sixth Ranger.
The Sixth Ranger. If you ever want to stir up the status quo, and more importantly boost toy sales, you turn to the dude or gal who decides to join the team halfway into the series. Over the years, Toei has really refined the concept and has even found ways of extending it beyond the borders of just Super Sentai, like with Precure. Really, I just find it fascinating how they were able to adapt a concept that was originally meant for guys in spandex.
That is not spandex!
But for today, we're going to take a quick look at each of the heroines who joined the Precure ranks partway through their heroic campaigns. We'll see how a bunch of their origins on and off screen parallel Super Sentai Six Rangers, and judge how well they shook up the team dynamic, for better or worse. Obviously, I'm going into major spoiler territory for almost every Precure season, so just a quick heads up.
With that in mind, let's take a look at the heroines who, despite being a little bit late to the party, were still able to make things a bit more interesting. First, let's talk a little bit about the origins of the Sixth Ranger concept. Now, most Western viewers probably associate the term with the green guy who joined the dinosaur team.
And while the Zyuranger original Burai was indeed the first recurring sixth member of a Sentai team, the actual concept of a hero joining the team midway into the season originated much sooner during the second Sentai ever, Jacker Dengekitai with Big One. But interestingly enough, Precure ended up following suit by having their first ever extra heroine join a pre-established team during their second season as well. Though said second season was actually a direct sequel to Futaiwa Precure as opposed to a season with a brand new team, like with what Jacker was to Gold Ranger. I'd imagine Toei just didn't have any immediate plans for a second Precure series since the original was, believe it or not, a bit of a sleeper hit. Thus, they just went with a direct sequel to the original to fill up the time slot until the next season when they could actually start production on a brand new series. Still, if you're going to do a direct sequel, you do need to add something new to change things up enough, and thus Hikari Kujo was brought in. She met the girls in the season 2 opener, and became Shiny Luminance in the 5th episode.
Well, that was quick. I didn't think anyone could join a team as fast as Tommy did in Dino Thunder.
While I don't think I've seen quite enough of the original 2 Precure seasons to give a solid opinion about it, I think Hikari was a decent addition to the original series, despite some not caring for her all that much. Now, I can understand some of the detractors' complaints about her, like the fact that she is a non-combatant member of the team, and was a little boring, but I would counter that by saying that she was still supporting the team as essentially a white mage. You know, that one team member whose job is to buffer her teammates' stats while weakening the enemies. Moreover, from that position, she's not really stealing that much spotlight from the original duo, unlike certain other characters I could mention. Nagisa and Honoka were still doing most of the fighting, while Hikari was earnestly trying to support them. To me, this is a good way of introducing a new protagonist to a pre-established team. Have them support in the background, and slowly garner goodwill with the viewing audience. That way, when they start playing a larger role later, like how Luminous does near the climax, it feels earned.
Again, I haven't seen a whole lot of Max Heart, so my opinion on her might change. But for the most part, from what I've seen, I think Hikari Kujo was a fine example of how you introduce a Sixth Ranger.
She may have been a little bland, but still good-natured enough that I think she earned her spot amongst her fellow heroines. The following season, Futaiwa Precure Splash Star had no real Sixth Ranger type characters. They did have sort of $11 Rangers you could say in the form of the Kiryu sisters. $11 Rangers being those heroes who come in during the series endgame to help the protagonists. But yeah, nothing much else to say about Splash Star or the preceding season, yes, Precure 5, which again didn't have a 6th Ranger. No, we'd have to wait for yet another direct sequel season.
Yes, Precure 5, go, go!
Enter Yes Precure 5 Go Go. Get it? Cause Go is also a homonym for 5 in Japanese. Wait, didn't Toei already make something with a very similar name? From what I've read, Yes Precure 5 didn't do so well both in TV ratings and merchandise sales, especially in comparison to its first season. It had a lot of problems that we'll probably go through in a future video, though I don't think the 6th Ranger Milky Rose, yes seriously that's the name they went with, alleviated many of the problems if not made more of them. Much like Shiny Luminous before her, the literal seeds of her arrival were planted early on, and a few episodes later she suddenly arrived to curb the villains, and continued to do this for the next few episodes until she officially joined the team.
And here we see a common problem amongst the 6 Ranger types. They're shown to be far more competent than the original heroes.
Going back to Super Sentai for a minute, this also happened with the original 6th Ranger, Brai from Jew Ranger, appropriate since Rose was also the first recurring 6th member of her team. Brai became the most popular aspect of Zyuranger because from his debut to his death, spoilers, he was always shown to be a far more competent hero than any of the other Rangers.
The other Sentai are just cheering him on. I wonder why they don't help him.
Now, it's fine to make a new member look strong initially, but overdoing it will only serve to make the core team look weaker. Thus, when the original novelty of a new team member fades, so will the viewer's investment into the show. Now again, this only really lasted for her first 5 episodes and then she joined the team, so at least not a lot of damage was done. Still, that didn't help what happened next. While most fans already knew who she was based on that previous episode, the episode where Rose revealed her true identity still pissed off a lot of people. As it turns out, she was Milk, a mascot character who first appeared in the previous season, and was considered by many to be one of the most annoying walking plushies ever, acting overly tsundere and demoralizing the team on more than one occasion. Also, her whole reason for hiding her true identity initially was...
それは昔からのお約束だからミル。みんなを救う素敵なヒロインの正体は秘密なんだミル。
That's stupid! You're stupid! Stop being stupid!
You do realize the whole reason Brian never became a full-time team member was because he had a very limited amount of time outside the Laplace room, thus him coming out to help the Rangers was a noble act. You pointlessly distance yourself from the team just to fulfill some stupid tropes!
Actually, just looking at her design, I wouldn't be surprised if the Butcher based another troublemaking furball off of her. But yeah, Milky Rose is pretty much the exact opposite of Shiny Luminance in that she ended up stealing some of the team's thunder with her overbearing personality, which itself was aggravating. Now granted, she did get better as the season progressed, and while I don't think she ruined the season, she also didn't help their floundering ratings. Thus we enter into Fresh Precure. This was the do or die season for the Precure franchise, as Gogo's tanking had put them in the red, and Toei was considering pulling the plug on the whole thing. Thankfully though, Fresh was really damn good, thanks in no small part to a fantastic 6th Ranger. Interestingly, this is probably the first time in a Precure series where Toei used the 6th Ranger concept for its original purpose, to boost a dying show's ratings. Yeah, fun fact, both Big One and Brai were written in after their respective shows failed to spark significant viewership. In the case of the former, while Big One was able to produce a slight boom in the ratings, it didn't halt Jacker's sudden cancellation.
怪人は今も君たちを物陰からこっそり伺っているかもしれないぞ。
後味悪い。
打ち切り臭が目に染みて涙が止まらねえぜ。
Meanwhile, Brian managed to save his show, albeit by overshadowing his teammates. So obviously, Toei wanted to make another Brai, but without the whole overshadowing thing if possible. Thus, they went with the common antagonist becomes good route when introducing East, later known as Setsuna Higashi, as a new team member.
Yeah, this has been done a lot in Sentai and even in Precure with the aforementioned Kiryu sisters, but Setsuna in my opinion pulled off one of the best heel-face turns in any Toei production.
It was a great gradual process where, through her attempts at getting close to the Precure to learn their secrets, she ended up forming a bond with them, leading to her eventual turn. I'll go more into detail about Setsuna's character arc in the actual Fresh Precure review, but I think a lot of viewers wanted to see her turn after she started to become a very sympathetic character. Needless to say, you tend to earn a lot of sympathy points when you work for an evil dictator who controls every aspect of your life, including your lifespan. Yeah, I suspect Setsuna being forcibly given a very limited lifespan was inspired by Burai, but it was done in reverse here as her death as a villain is what leads her to being reborn as Pure Passion. Also, unlike Burai, it never felt like she outclassed her teammates, which again is a good thing, as you want all of your protagonists to look strong, as this is supposed to be a show about a team of heroines and not a one-man band. Now, would Precure still be around if Pure Passion had never joined the team? Maybe, because Fresh Precure was still a damn good anime either way, but why wouldn't you want her around? Next up, we enter into the first season that brought in more than one new member, Heartcat Precure. The first one to join this team was Itsuki Myodoin, who in her civilian form, you might not be able to even tell that she's going to become a Precure. Her whole backstory is that she crosses in order to fill in for her brother as the heir to her family's dojo. Though deep down, she wanted to be a little bit more girly, so it only really made sense that she joined a team of girly ass-kickers. As Pure Sunshine, she was able to apply her martial arts training in battle, even though her actual magical abilities harper back to shiny luminance. So yeah, she was a good addition to the team as a barrier warrior to balance her teammates' more offensive skill sets. Still, she didn't quite give off a Sixth Ranger vibe in my opinion, probably because there wasn't a huge amount of build up to her introduction into the team. No, that came more from the second Cure to join their team, Yuri Tsukikage, who remains the oldest active Precure at 17.
At that age, should she really be calling herself a magical girl? Well, then again, I think she still pulls it off better than a certain blonde vampire.
私アルクエロブリュースタットここだけの秘密実は趣味と実益を兼ねた正義の魔法少女ファンタズムーンなの
In story, she was a veteran, having served for a much longer time than the others, and this was actually becoming a thing for Sentai 6 Rangers around that time too. In fact, she was the first person to be seen in Precure form during the season, albeit in flashback. However, during this little prologue, we saw her lose her powers, and thus she was sidelined for much of the season. Viewers had the feeling that she would eventually regain her powers and formally join this team, and just from the little that we saw of her fighting and her cool demeanor, we were excited to see what she could bring to the party, and she did not disappoint. Her being the best technical fighter on the team was justified, unlike other 6 Rangers, because, well, she was the veteran. From her point of view, the other 3 were the 6 Rangers. But yeah, while Itsuki's introduction was a little underwhelming, Yuri's more than made up for it. Again, I'll talk more about them when I actually get around to reviewing Heartcat. Following this, we had Sweet Precure, yet another season where 2 heroines joined the original 2, and they're also purple and yellow respectively. Huh. Well, I'm sure they're completely unique, like how the purple one started off as a talking mascot character who gained a human form. Well, in Siren's case, she started off as an antagonist and then became a Precure after continuous contact with the team.
Look, there's inductive reasoning, there's deja vu, there's language processing, there's deja vu.
Okay, all jokes aside, Siren's reformation played out pretty differently than Setsuna's. For one thing, she wasn't born into the dark side like Setsuna was, but rather brought in thanks to being brainwashed by an evil melody.
Yeah, a bad serenade turned her evil. Yeah, I've heard of drama things that turn people evil. At least this one actually has some supernatural origins behind it.
Anyway, her reformation scene was handled really well, probably one of the best scenes from that season. Too bad the lead up to it was a little lacking because, well, she didn't make much of a villain in the first place. For the most part, Siren and her flunkies acted mostly like another team of goofy villains led by a cat. And after the revelation that she was just being mind-controlled, it just felt like a matter of time before she turned. For any good 6 Ranger starting off as an antagonist, you have to put in at least a little bit of ambiguity as to whether or not they'll join the team, thereby making the turn that much more dramatic. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Cure Beat was great as a character, but they could have done more with her build-up. Though maybe that's because, again, the staff was more focused on the second Cure's build-up. Yeah, the interesting thing about Cure Muse was that she was introduced fairly early into the series, and her identity remained unknown until she actually joined over 20 episodes later. And unlike Milky Rose, it was genuinely a good mystery as to who she was. Rather than a Sentai, this actually reminded me of the Gold Ranger mystery from Power Rangers Zeo.
Anyone remember that, where they made it seem like the Gold Ranger could be several different possible candidates, and then it turned out it was some dude we had never even met before? Yeah, thankfully this anime has a much more satisfying resolution.
They too threw around several likely candidates, including a pre-face turned Siren, But as it turns out, it was a character that not many suspected. Ako Shiabe, a snarky little girl who seemed like nothing more than a supporting character up until that point. But looking back on it, it made a lot of sense as there were several clues that subtly pointed to her being Cure Muse as opposed to straight out stating it. Yeah, this was probably Toei's attempt at doing Milky roles again, but much better. While she too started off a little bit annoying, she never really got in their way and developed really fast after joining the team. Hell, I'll go as far to say as that she was my second favorite heroine from the season because of that great build-up, and being a younger Sixth Ranger who's more than just an annoying little brat. Ain't that right, Ko? Skipping Smile Precure since they didn't have a Sixth Ranger unless you count Candy, which we shall not, let's get right into Doki Doki and probably the most controversial Sixth Ranger in the Precure franchise. Okay, so even before a lot of these Sixth Ranger Precures are introduced, they usually have magazine articles that sort of spoil their arrival, so some already knew that there was going to be a new red Precure for this season. So obviously it was going to be Regina, the girl with the red ribbon, who started off as an antagonist, but was in the middle of pulling a complete face turn.
Alright, it's a little bit played out, but having an ally who's the daughter of the big bad of the season might make things a little bit more interesting. Wait.
なんなのあなた
Who?
愛の切り札
Huh?
キュアエース
Yep, after several episodes worth of build up towards a face turn, Regina ended up becoming a bad guy again, and the Sixth Ranger mantle was taken up by this new character, Oggy Madoka. A big problem fans had with this new character's introduction was how it broke a unique tradition Precure had going up until this season. You see, the big thing that differentiated Precure Sixth Rangers against Sentai's was the fact that they didn't just plop a new character in just to become a new team member. They give at least a few episodes to these characters so that we can actually get to know them. Oggy just came out of nowhere and in the eyes of many, including myself, stole the Sixth Ranger position from Regina, a character we had grown attached to having gotten to know her. I'm guessing this was supposed to be like their attempt at a big swerve or something, but come on Toei, this isn't Danganronpa 3, you actually have to think these twists through. And even putting that aside, Cure Ace pretty much did everything a Sixth Ranger shouldn't do. She looked stronger than any of the other Precure, Ultraman style time limit aside, and she wasn't very endearing because she was constantly talking down to her teammates as though she actually knows them and their team dynamic. You know, at least Aqua was always watching her teammates fight and got to know them personally before she started criticizing their crime fighting skills. Look, I do legitimately like Doki Doki, but I do agree that Oggy was a major misstep in this series. Well, after that, at least we can move on to a new season where I'm sure they'll be able to do the Sixth Ranger thing better, and damn it! Okay, so Happiness Charge Precure saw two new members join the core duo, one of them being yellow and the other being a veteran warrior in purple.
Gee, this team doesn't look the least bit familiar. Damn it, I used the inside out clip too soon.
The interesting thing about Cure Honey was the fact that her first appearance, outside of the show's opening, was in Precure All-Stars New Stage 3, where she appeared out of nowhere during the film's climax for all of 5 seconds, and then just left the film.
Well, that was pointless.
Yeah, I think this was Toei trying to do the same thing that they were doing recently with Super Sentai by having a Sixth Ranger debut near the end of their films, weeks before they make their actual TV debut. It seldom made sense there, and doesn't make any sense here. Anyway, Cure Honey just casually joins the team with no real fuss, and Fortune joins them after a convoluted subplot between her and Hime. I have a laundry list of complaints in regards to Happiness Charge, but let's save that for the actual review. I'll just say that Six Rangers, Cure Honey and Cure Fortune both felt really phoned in.
So after 2 seasons of subpar Sixth Rangers, Precure really needed something to fill in the void. Okay, now we're talking. Here's the main event.
The character that everyone wanted me to talk about since my Princess Precure review, Toa Kagi, or rather, Cure Scarlet. I didn't want to talk about her in the review because I didn't want to spoil this awesome debut, but since I've spoiled pretty much a good portion of every other season, let's talk about one of the best red Precures ever in detail. Much like Passion Beat before her, she started off as a general under the control of the big bad of the season, or to be more exact, the daughter of the big bad of the season.
And thanks sweet Jesus they didn't pull another idiot swerve.
She was intimidating and didn't give off the immediate impression that she was going to switch sides. She also by and far had probably the darkest backstory amongst any of the characters I've talked about today, and possibly in the entire Precure franchise. How dark are we talking? Well, how about being kidnapped for several years and being brainwashed into believing you're someone else's child?
You know, for kids!
And just for reference, this is what Toa looked like before being kidnapped, and this is what she looked like as Princess Twilight. Yeah, I'd estimate about half a decade or so of God knows what being done to her. And while brainwashing isn't uncommon in Sentai, the most recent example coming from the latest season with Jewel of the World, at least those were short sessions compared to years of it. The closest comparison I can think of is maybe Ryan from Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue.
But even then, it wasn't even really full-on brainwashing as much as it was subtle suggestion. Besides, despite how he looks, that Diabolical is actually not that bad of a guy.
Eventually, Haruka and Toa's brother Kanta were able to free her, but seemingly at the cost of Kanta's life. From here came the point in Toa's story where she had to prove whether or not she was worthy of the title of Precure, since up until this point we really hadn't seen her outside of flashbacks. Understandably, she was distraught over her past sins, including the fall of her kingdom and the possible death of her brother. However, with a little encouragement from Haruka, she found the strength to embrace her sins through a beautiful sequence where the two play a violin duet.
Seriously, go look up Kanta and Toa's melody. It's my second favorite non-vocal tune from this anime. My first is, well...
Having found the strength to embrace her sins, it was time to atone for them. I think both future Precure and Super Sentai 6 Rangers should take note. This is how you make a first impression. While Cure Scarlet's story has been told before, the execution of it here was so well done that it really doesn't matter. She started off as an awesome villain who became an even better heroine. What more could you ask for? To wrap things up, let's quickly talk about the current 6 Rangers to join the Maho Girls Precure team, Kotoha Hanami, formerly known as Hatan, and currently Cure Felice. Starting off as a baby fairy mascot character, she grew at an insane rate over the course of less than 20 episodes until like Siren and Milk gained a human form. Actually, since she came from something that looks like a certain rectangular electronic device, I ended up seeing her as something else. That aside, this is a unique take on the 6 Ranger concept with a character growing into the role. Though, honestly, I kind of wish she stayed in her younger form at least for a little while more. Otherwise, what was the point of introducing all of those special forms she had in that one episode? Wouldn't it have been cool if she started off as a supporter before becoming a full-time member? I don't know, I still have to finish the season before giving any final opinion, so we'll wait and see. Oh, and this season they're also going to turn the other mascot character into a Precure later this month in a movie.
Huh, I didn't even know teddy bears could have a gender. Hell, I assumed that only bunnies could pull off the whole magical girl thing. And those are my general thoughts on all the 6 Ranger Precure introduced as of 2016.
And as long as there's a franchise, there's probably going to be a lot more in the future. While I realize pretty much all of them were created to sell more toys, I can't help but love how they add new interesting dynamics to a team. While some of them were kind of misfires, they all still represent an important idea, that new heroes are born every day. They can start off weak and frail, or even as antagonists, it doesn't matter. As long as the will to protect others exists within them, then they can earn the right to join the ranks of some of the greatest heroines in all of anime.
If you have your own thoughts or want to start listing your favorite 6 Rangers from any toy production really, feel free to comment below. Next time I'll be back, hopefully with something a little bit more Halloween themed. Until then though, farewell for now my friends.